हेलो भैया। तो चैप्टर आज हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं चैप्टर 1 माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स का। सो स्टार्ट करते हैं। यू मस्ट हैव ऑलरेडी बीन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड to a study of basic microeconomics. This chapter begins by giving you a simplified account of how macroeconomics differ from microeconomics that you have known, or those of you will choose later to supplement specialize in economics for your higher studies. You will know about more complex analysis that are used by economists to study microeconomics today. But the basic question of study of microeconomics would remain the same, and you will find that these are actually in the broad economic questions that concern all citizens. Will the prices as the whole rise as or come down? Is employment is the employment condition of the country as a whole or of some sector of the economy getting better? Is it worsening? What would be the reasonable steps if you can state take or the people ask for in order to improve the state of the economy? These are the kind of questions that make us think about health of the country's economy as a whole. These questions are dealt with in microeconomics at different level of complexity. In this book, you will be introduced to some of the basic principle of macroeconomics analysis. The principle will stated as far as possible in simple language. Sometimes elementary algebra will be used in the treatment for introducing the readers to some rigorous. If we observe the economy of a country as a whole, it will appear that of uh, output level of all the goods and the services in the economy have a tendency to make together. For example, if output of food and grain is experiencing a growth, it is generally accompanied by a rise in the output level of industrial good. Within the category of industrial good, also output of different kind of good tend to rise or fall simultaneously. Similarly, prices of different good and services generally have a tendency to rise or fall simultaneously. We can also observe that the employment level in different production unit also goes up or down together. If aggregate output level, price level, or employment level in the different production unit of an economy bear close relationship to each other, then the task of analyzing the entire economy become relatively easy. Instead of dealing with the above mentioned variable and at individual disaggregate levels, we can think of a single good as the representative of the all the goods and services produced within the economy. This representation good will help have a level of production which will correspond to the average production level of the all goods and services. Similarly, the prices or employment of this representative good will reflect the general prices and employment level of the economy. In microeconomics, we usually simplify the analysis of how the country's total production and the level of employment are related to attribute called variables like prices, rate of interest, wages, rate, profit, and so on. Why focusing on a single imaginary commodity and what happened to it, we are able to afford this simplification and thus usefully obtain from studying what happened to the many real commodities that actually are brought and sold in the market, because we generally see that what happens to the prices, interest, wages, and profit etc for one commodity more or less also happens for the other particularly when these attributes start changing fast, like when prices are going up in what is called inflation or unemployment, and production level are going down, heading for a depression. The general direction of the movement of these variables for all the individual commodity are usual of the same kind are seen for the aggregate for the economy as a whole. We will we will see below why sometimes we also depart from the this useful simplification when we really realize that the country's economy as a whole may best interdependence or even rivalry between two sectors of the economy, agriculture and industry, for example, or the relationship between sectors like the household sector, the business sector, the government, and the government in a democratic set up help us understand something happening to the country's economy much better than by only looking at the economy as a whole, while moving away from the different goods and focusing on a representative good may be convenient. In the process we may be overlook some vital distinctive characteristic of individual goods, for example production, or if we treat a single category of labor as a representative of all kind of labor, we may be unable to distinguish the labor of the manager of a firm from representative category of good or labor of or production technology. We may commodities may be taken as a representative of all commodities being produced within the economy: agriculture goods, industrial goods, and services. These goods may have different production technology and different prices. Macroeconomics also tries to analyze how these individual output level prices and employment level of these different goods get determined. From this discussion here and you earlier reading of microeconomics, you may have already begun to understand in what way macroeconomics differ from microeconomics. To replu- recapitulate briefly, in microeconomics you may come across individual economic agent, see works, and the nature of the motivation that drive them. They were micro, meaning small, agent consumers choosing their respective or optimum combination of good to buy. Given these tastes and income and producers trying to make maximum profit out of producing their good, keeping their cost as the low as possible, and selling at a prices at high as they could get in the market. In the other word, microeconomics was a study of individual markets of demand and supply, and the players or the discussion makers were also individual buyers or sellers, even companies who were seen as trying to maximize their profit as producers or sellers, and their personal satisfaction or welfare level as consumer. Even a large company was a micro in the sense that it had to act as the interest of its own shareholder, which was not necessarily the interest of the country as a whole. Like uh, in like inflation or unemployment were either not mentioned or were taken as given. And these were not variables that individual buyers or sellers could change. The nearest that microeconomics got to macroeconomics were taken was when it looked at general equilibrium, meaning the equilibrium of supply and demand in each market in the economy. Economic agent, in by economy unit or economic agent we mean those individual or institution which will take economic decisions. They can be consumer who decide what and how much to consume. They may be produce of good and services who decide what and how much to produce. They may be entities like the government, corporation, banks, which also take different economic decisions like how much to spend, what interest rate to charge on the credit, how much to tax, etc. Macroeconomics tries to address situation facing the economy as a whole. Adam Smith, the father of the modern economics, had suggested that if the buyers and sellers in each market take their decisions following only their own self-interest, economists will not need to think of the wealth and the welfare of the country as a whole separately, but economists gradually discovered that they had to look further. Economists found that first, in some cases, the market did not or could not exist. Secondly, in some other cases, the market exists but failed to produce equilibrium of demand and supply. Thirdly, and the most importantly, in a large number of situations, society or the state or the people as a whole had decided to pursue certain important social goals unselfishly. In this, like employment, administration, define education and health, for which some of the aggregate effect of the microeconomics decisions made by individual economic agent needed to be modified. For these purposes, microeconomics had to supply the effect in the market of taxation and the other budgetary policy for bringing about changes in money supply, the rate of interest, wages, employment, and output. Microeconomics has therefore deep root in microeconomics because it has studied the aggregate effect of the forces of demand and supply in the market. However, in addition, it has to deal with the policies aimed at also modifying these forces if necessary to follow choices made by society outside the market. In a developing country like India, such choices have to be made to remove or reduce unemployment, to improve access to education and primary healthcare for all, to produce for the good administration, to provide sufficiently for the defense of the country, and so on. Macroeconomics show two simple characteristics that are evident in dealing with the situation we have just listened. These are briefly mentioned below. First, who are the microeconomics decision makers or the players? Microeconomics policies are pursued by the state itself or statutory bodies like the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, and the similar institutions. Typically, each such body will have one or more public goals to pursue as defined by the law or the Constitution of India itself. These goals are not those of individual economic agent maximizing their private profit or welfare. Thus, the microeconomics agent are basically different from the individual decision makers. Secondly, what do the macroeconomics decision maker try to do? Obviously, they often have to go beyond the economic objectives and try to direct and the de- deployment of economy resources for such public needs as we have listed above. Such activities are not aimed at serving individual self-interest. They are pursued for the welfare of the country and its people as a whole. Topic number 1.1, emergence of microeconomics. Microeconomics as a separate branch of economics emerged after the British economist John Maynard Keynes published his celebrated book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, in 1936. The dominant thinking economics before Keynes was that all the laborers who are ready to work will find employment, and factories will be working at their full capacity. This school of thought is known as the classical tradition. However, the Great Depression in 1929 and the subsequent years saw the output and employment level in this country of Europe and North America fall by huge amount. It affected the other countries of the world as well. Demand for the good in the market was low. Many factories were lying idle. Workers were thrown out of jobs in USA from 1929 to 1933. Unemployment rate, those I just read the topic again. Topic number 1.1, emergence of the microeconomics. Microeconomics as a separate branch of economics emerged after the British economist John Maynard Keynes published his celebrated book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, in 1936. The dominant thinking in economics before Keynes was that all the laborers who are ready to work will find employment, and all the factories will working at their full capacity. This school of thought is known as the classical tradition. However, the Great Depression of 1929 and subsequent years saw the output and employment level in the country of Europe and North America falls by a huge amount. It affected the other countries of the world as well. Demand for the good in the market was low. Many factories were lying idle. Workers were thrown out of job. In USA from 1929 to 1933, unemployment rate rose 3% to 25%. Unemployment rate may be defined as the number of the people who are not working and are looking for a job divided by the total number of the people who are working or looking for a job over the same period. Aggregate output in the USA fell by about 33%. These events made economists think about functioning of the economy in a new way. The fact that the economy may have long-lasting employment had to be theorized about. The explain Keynes' book was an attempt in the direction. Unlike the predecessors, his approach was to examine the working of the economy in its entire and examine the interdependence of of different sectors. The subject of the microeconomics was born. Topic number 1.2, context of the present book of macroeconomics. We must remember that the subject under the study of the has a particular historical context. We shall examine the working of the economy of a capitalist country in this book. In a capitalist country, production activities are mainly carried out by the capitalist enterprises. A typical capitalist enterprises has one or several entrepreneurs, people who exercise control over major decisions and bear a large part of the risk associated with the firm's enterprise. They may themselves supply the capital needed to run the enterprises, or they may borrow the capital to carry out production. They also need a natural resources, a part consumed in the process of production, example raw material, and a part of fixed, example plot of land, and they need the most important element of human labor to carry out the production. This we shall refer to as labor after producing captured output with the help of these three factors of production, namely capital, land, and labor. The entrepreneur sell the product in the market. The money that is earned is called the revenue. Part of the revenue is paid as out as a rent for the service rendered by the land. Part of it is paid to the capital as interest, and the part of it goes to the labor wages. The rest of the revenue is the earning of the entrepreneur, and it is called the profit. The profit are often used by the producer in the next period to buy new machinery or to build new factories so that the production can be expanded. These expenses which raise productive capacity are example of investment expenditure. I just read the topic again. Topic number 1.2: context of the present book of macroeconomics. We must remember that the subject under the study has a particular historical context. We shall examine the working of economy of a capitalist country. Is this book in a capitalist country, production activity are mainly carried out by the capitalist enterprises. A typical enterprises has one or several entrepreneurs, people who exercise control over the major decision and bear a large part of the risk associated with the firm enterprises. This may be themselves supply the capital needed to run the enterprises, or they may borrow the capital to carry out the production. They also need a natural resources, a part consumed in the process of production, example raw material, and a part fixed, example plot of land, and they need the most important element of the human labor to carry out the production. This cell referred to as a laborer. After producing output with the help of these three factors of production, namely capital, land, and labor, the entrepreneur sells the product in the market. The money that is earned is called the revenue. The part of the revenue is paid out as rent for the service rendered by the land. Part of it is paid to capital as interest, and part of it goes to labor as wages. The rest of the revenue is the earning of the entrepreneur, and it is called the profit. Profit are often used by the producers in the next period to buy new machinery or to build new factories, so the production can be expanded. These expenses which raise productive capacity are example of investment expenditure. In short, a capitalist economy can be defined as economy in which the most ownership of the main production, in which most of the activities are have following characteristic: A, there is a private ownership of the means of production. B, production take place by for selling the output in the market. C, there is a sale and purchase of labor services at the price which is called the wage rate. The labor which is sold and the purchased against wages is referred to as wage labor. If we apply the above mentioned four criteria to the countries of the world, we would find that capitalist countries have come into being only during the last 3 or 400 years. Moreover, strictly speaking, even at present, a handful of countries in North America, Europe, and Asia will qualify as a capitalist countries. In many underdeveloped countries, production in agriculture especially is carried out by the peasant family. Wage labor is seldom used, and the most of the labor is performed by the family members themselves. Production is not solely for the market. A great part of it is consumed by the families. Neither do many peasant farm experience a significant rise in capital stock over time. In many tribal society, the ownership of the land does not exist. The land may belong to the whole tribe. In such society, the analysis that we shall present in the book will not be applicable of the production unit which are organized according to capitalist principle. The production unit will be called firms. In this book, in a firm, the enterprises for or entrepreneurs is at the helm of affairs. See hires wages labor from the market. C employ the services of the capital and the land as well. After hiring these input, such undertake the task of production. Her motive for producing goods and services referred to as output is to sell them in market and earn profit in the process. C undertake risk and uncertainties. For example, C may not get a high enough prices for the good C is producing. This may lead to fall in the profit and that C earn. It is to be noted that in capitalist country, the factors of production earn these income through the process of production and sale of this of the resultant output in the market. In both the development and developing country, apart from the private capitalist sector, there is a institution of state. The role of the state include include framing law, enforcing them, and delivering justice. The state, in many instances, undertake production apart from imposing taxes and separate money on building public infrastructure, running schools, colleges, providing health services, etc. These economic functions of the state have to be taken into account when we want to describe the economy of the country. For convenience, we shall use the term government to denote a state. Apart from the film and the government, there is another major sector is an economy which is called the household sector. By household sector, we mean a single individual who takes decision related to her own consumption or group of individual for whom decision relating to consumption are are jointly determined. Household also save and pay taxes. How do they get the money for these activity? We must remember that these household consist of people. For these activities, we must remember that the household consist of people. These people work in firms as worker and earn wages. They are the ones who work in the government department and earn salaries, or they are the owner of firms and earn profit. Indeed, the market in which the firms sell their product is could not be been function without the demand coming from the household. So far, we have described the major players in the domestic economy, but all the country of the world are also engaged in external trade. The external sector in the fourth important sector in our study. Trade with the external sector can be two kind. First, domestic country may sell good to the rest of the world. These called exports. Second, the economy may also buy goods from the rest of the world. These are called imports. Beside export and import, the rest of the world affect the domestic economy in the country in other ways as well. Third, capital from foreign countries may flow into the domestic country, or the domestic country may be exporting capital to foreign countries. Summary: a macroeconomics deals with the aggregate economy variables of the variable of an economy. It also take into account various interlinkage which may exist between the different sector of an economy. This is what distinguishes it from the microeconomics, which mostly examine the functioning of the particular sector of the economy, assuming that the rest of the economy remain the same. Macroeconomics emerged as a separate subject in 1930s due to the keenness Keynes, the Great Depression, which dealt a blow to the economies of development countries, had provided Keynes with the inspiration for his writing. In this book, we shall mostly deal with the working of a capitalist economy. Hence, it may not be entirely able to capture the functioning of a developing country. Microeconomics sees an economy as a combination of the four sectors, namely household, firms, the government, and the external sector. And our chapter one is now completed. I hope you understand this chapter very well.